missing someone. Love with all your heart. Missing someone. Love with heart.
What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. So this week I'm going to show you a client transformation of a client who is going to be getting some creative color, but this type of creative color is going to be very wearable. It's also good for people who want something that is really low maintenance and will fade completely back to blonde, so there's really no commitment as far as committing to a really fun bright color or anything like that. It's going to be nice and subtle and soft and perfect for anyone who is wanting to dip their toes into doing or trying out a fun color. So I'm going to start off with highlighting the nape, and I like to line the hairline here. So I take a nice weave, and this is my first time highlighting this client's hair. She hasn't touched her roots in, I would say, probably over a year. And so during this application, even though this is some color that I have not done before, I'm still going to be actively picking out dark pieces. So generally whenever a client comes in, if they've waited more than the general at least 6 weeks to do highlights and stuff, I always try to actively pick out the longest dark pieces whenever highlighting any client's hair. So what that's going to do is, for a client like this who eventually wants their ends a little bit lighter, it's going to create the effect that the ends are lighter than the top. So this really only works if a client has previous lightened ends or previous balayage or highlights or whatever you want to call it. And so every time you do a touch-up, you want to make sure that you're picking out the pieces that have the longest root. So even though this placement isn't the placement that I normally do, I'm still going to try my best to actively pick out those pieces so that her roots get blended and at the same time her mids and ends get a little bit lighter. So I did about 2 detail foils on the sides here. This way when she puts her hair up, there's nice color and it's really bold around there. I feel like when a client also brings their hair forward, the hairs around the nape that I just foiled right now is also a continuation of their money piece. So it's really important to make sure that you highlight this area, otherwise it can look like a really dark black hole there when they bring their hair forward if they are naturally really dark and you're trying to get them on the lighter side. So for my products, I'm using the Sports Golf Blonde Me Lightener, and I did a mixture of 6 volume and 20 volume for my first bowl of lightener, and then throughout the rest of the head, I'm just going to be doing just 20 volume. That is generally what I use on every client of mine that has this type of foil work, and I just find that with this ratio, I always do a lighter bowl of developer. Like a weaker bowl first, because that's going to be sitting on the head the longest and I don't want it to be done by the time I'm almost done foiling. So I do a weaker bowl to start off with, and then generally I just like using 20 volume on everybody because I feel like 20 volume is a really nice standard to where you get a really strong lift without compromising the hair. So after I've done those 2 detail hairline foils, I'm going to be going in just taking the back into one section. So you can see I'm pretty much taking a center parting section and just slicing that whole part. And I'm using long foils to custom cut the length of my foils according to however long her roots are. And as you can see, I'm using my rat tail comb and actively picking out any previous blonde that's running through the end so they don't overlap, and then running the lightener through wherever it's dark on the mids and ends. So since this client wanted to be fairly light, I am going to be making my sections and slices pretty close together. I find that since her roots are so dark, I need to make these sections pretty close together. But if a client was already pretty blonde, and let's say she came in about 10 to 12 weeks and she was already really blonde, then in the back where the below the occipital here where I'm working on, I could definitely take my sections a little bit thicker. But again, since she's waited, I would say over a year, her roots are really long, I'm taking these slices pretty close together so that she gets a good amount of color back here. So since this is how I normally foil most of my clients, this is a big reason why if a client is wanting like a balayage look that is really blended and they show me an inspiration picture that is super solid, I definitely let them know that it's going to take them a few sessions to get there because of the way that I like to do my foil work. And because of that, when she comes in for her next appointment, what I'm going to be doing is actively picking out those pieces that I left out this time so that her mids and ends do get eventually solid and it gets close to her goal photo. So now I am just continuing that back center parting all the way up towards the top of the head, and I'm going to continue this section all the way till I reach her hairline, and I find that this is just faster. When I'm on the top here though, wherever she parts her hair, these sections are going to be even closer together because I want to make sure that she gets a lot of color here. Her hair is fairly dark, so that if I leave too much dimension in between my slices, the dark will definitely overpower the light pieces. So I'm trying to make sure that my sections are pretty close together. I'm not leaving too much dimension. And then also making sure that my slices are fairly see-through and thin to make sure that I get a really clean, even saturation. Now, if I were to take a section that was too big or even fold my foil up on this type of level of hair and hair texture, I would see that there might be some warm spots or I might get an uneven lift. So that's why I always like to take thinner sections and then make sure that my foils are not folded up wherever there is liner. So as I'm working on her money piece, I did about 2 slices back to back, and then I finished it off with 2 weaves after the slice to connect the money piece with the back parting. So as I'm moving on to the sides, I am going to weave the hairline just like I weaved the hairline in the back. And I generally like to weave the hairline just to kind of soften the lines. The only part that I really like to take a slice is that top part where you saw I did the money piece, only because that part is okay for it to be bold, but I find if I do a slice on the sides here and around the nape of the neck and above the ear, when they put their hair up, it always looks like a chunk of blonde rather than something that is nice and blended. So that is why I generally like to weave the whole hairline, even though the rest of the head is all based on slices. So after I do that weave above the ear, I'm just going to continue doing my slicing pattern all the way till I reach that top section. And again, I'm making sure that my slices are nice and even and just see-through enough so that I get really clean, even saturation. So since this is the sides, I'm not too worried about my sections being super close together. This is where you can leave a little bit more dimension, since this is going to be the inside of the color essentially, and everything where she parts her hair is going to essentially lay over this. So you're not going to see much of the depth on the sides here, only when she curls her hair. But I do like to generally leave a little bit more depth on the sides because it does give that nice contrast to give it that more lived-in balayage look. So this is what her foils look like when they were ready. We lifted her to, I would say, about a level 9. And after this, we're going to be toning her. I chose that we were going to be toning her with the Pulp Bright Rapid Toners. And I'm going to be doing a mixture of rose gold and a little bit of violet. So before we did the lighter toner, which you can see we're putting on the lighter toner right now, which is that rapid toner I was talking about, I did a shadow root, and for her shadow root, I like to normally do a liquid demi formulation. So I did a 6-1, which is a level 6 ash, and that's just going to blend the line of demarcation from the highlights at the root. I generally always will do a shadow root, especially since we're slicing. If you don't, you'll definitely see like the harsh lines. So I generally will do a slicing, a shadow root on all my slices so that it kind of diffuses those lines. And then after I had done the shadow root, now I'm going in and doing the rapid toner formulation. And this formula is mostly consisted of rose gold, and then I added in a little bit of violet for a little bit of control so that the rose gold wouldn't get too warm. So essentially this is going to create like a mauve-y rose gold feel. So when I'm applying the rapid toner, I always like to apply starting in the back, and I'll take my sections and apply it to the mid, all over throughout the head, leaving out the hairline. And after I apply it to the mid, I go back in and my assistant and I will start brushing it out. And what that's going to do is it's going to drag that mid where we applied the rapid toner, and it's going to drag it down towards the end. And when it does that, I like to do that because wherever the pieces are a little bit lighter, those pieces are going to tone a little bit quicker because I'm dragging down the rapid toner. If you guys haven't used the rapid toner before, it's a very fast acting toner. So if there's any pieces that are generally a little bit lighter, those pieces will tone in like seconds. You can definitely see the toner working. It's not something that you have to let sit for a very long time for it to see the pigment coming through. It definitely works very fast. So that is why I like to brush it down. And then after I brush it down, I go back in and just apply more rapid toner where is needed, where I feel like needs more pigment than it does in other areas. And that's how I kind of get more of a dimensional toning application. So once this was all done, I probably let this sit on for about like 10-15 minutes and then washed and rinsed her with some cold water and then styled as usual. Alrighty guys, so here is the finished look. You can see that it is a nice smoky rose goldy color. I would say it's more mauve than anything because of the mixture that we made, but I love the way that everything came together. Considering how long her roots were, she was able to get fairly light and pretty solid throughout. And I love the toner choice that we gave on her because it's going to fade out really pretty against her natural skin tone and even her natural base color. And when this fades out, it's going to just fade right back to blonde because she is lifted to about a level 9 underneath this all. And she has the option to just let it grow out and just have it be blonde, or she can come back in and we can retone it and pick up those dark pieces. But overall, I would say that this color is going to fade out really nicely so that she doesn't have to come in super soon and she could just let it grow out. But yeah, I really love this color because it's super low maintenance, and I feel like she will just love the color as it fades out, and it's great for someone who wants to dip their toes into trying out any type of creative color. Alrighty guys, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in, and as always, I will talk to you guys next week.